So just the other day, after months of speculation, we got our first look at some renders of the upcoming Galaxy Z Fold 7. These coming from OnLeaks in collaboration with Android Headlines, and these renders confirmed quite a few things about the Z Fold 7. We have an 8.2-inch inner display, which is absolutely massive, bigger than the Oppo Find N5, bigger than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. We have a 6.5-inch cover display, which finally, at long last, appears to be the same aspect ratio or roundabout the same aspect ratio of a normal phone. This thing is apparently a very thin 4.5 millimeters thick. You can see in this render just how razor thin this thing is. It's not quite Oppo Find N5 territory, but compared to the Z Fold 6, compared to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, it is much thinner. And while this news largely garnered a positive response from my viewers, a lot of commenters saying this is exactly what they've been waiting for Samsung to do. I saw quite a few people saying, I'm on a Z Fold 3, Z Fold 4, and I'm finally going to upgrade if all of this does pan out. This is what I've been waiting for. There are some, I think, real complaints, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to outline a handful of ways where even though Samsung is ticking so many boxes we've been asking to be ticked, they could still end up being too far behind the other competition. And I think the most logical place to start is with the thing that I got by far the most negative comments about, and that is the size of the battery. While the screens are getting larger, the battery is staying exactly the same size at 4,400 milliamp hours, the same as the Z Fold 6. And this is, of course, at the same time that we are seeing other Chinese OEMs like Oppo in an even thinner device pack in a larger battery, 5,600 milliamp hours in the case, if I'm not mistaken, of the Oppo Find N5. So this is a place where Samsung is definitely falling behind versus these other phones. But I think that there are at least some reasons. I don't think that there are excuses because they should do more. They should do better. But let's at least kind of play devil's advocate here for just a moment. These other Chinese OEMs are adopting new battery technology, silicon carbon batteries, and Samsung isn't. Now, I don't think you're going to have to think too awfully hard to come up with at least one reason why Samsung would be hesitant to adopt new battery technology. Although, if we look at this report on Sam Mobile that states that the Galaxy S26 might actually use these silicon carbon batteries, they give some of the benefits here. Not only are they higher density than their lithium-ion counterparts, they also should be a bit safer to use. They don't overheat as easily as those batteries. I think the reality is they just haven't adopted them yet. They're probably going to, and the Z Fold 8 will probably have a much larger battery. I say probably. It could have a much larger battery. They're just lagging behind the competition here. And I think because of that, that is a real complaint to have. Now, keep in mind, it's not as if the Z Fold 6 battery life was bad. Let me actually show you a clip from my Z Fold 6 review for a little bit of context. So let's talk about battery life, and it just so happens that it is 6:16 p.m. and I'm sitting at 17%. I can kind of just tell you what today has been like. I've been in and out of the house a little bit, but I've like 80% been on Wi-Fi, which means this is not a particularly great battery score day, but we can jump into this battery section and you can see the numbers here. So screen on time, 5.5 hours. I could maybe stretch this thing to 6 hours. That has been kind of my normal experience with this phone. A lot of the time I'll tell you I get, 4 to 6 hours of screen on time, or I get 6 to 8 hours. I give you like a window of a couple of hours. Really weirdly with this device, it's been 6 hours of screen on time, like super duper consistently. I missed my hair terribly. Now look, keep in mind that, like I said, that screen is getting better. So the Z Fold 6, that tended to get me around 6 hours of screen on time with a larger screen. Maybe the screens are brighter. That is going to negatively impact that battery life a little bit. We're also going to be using the Snapdragon 8 Elite, so how that plays into things is going to matter. One UI 7 software optimization, that's all going to matter as well. at the end of the day, I think the battery life is probably going to be fine. You're probably still going to be in that 5 to 6 hours of screen on time range. You're probably still going to be able to make it through a day without a whole lot of issue. But I do wish that it was bigger. You should definitely go watch the full video from the tech chap because it's really, really good. But they did this battery test with a bunch of foldables, and you can see that the Galaxy Z Fold 6 came in third place. So what's important here, if we jump back, it beat the Honor Magic V3 that had a 5100 milliamp hour battery. It beat the Pixel 9 Pro Fold that had a bigger battery as well. It beat the OnePlus Open that had a bigger battery as well. There's a lot of stuff that matters when it comes to your battery life. Now, yes, unfortunately, the devices that beat it do have massive batteries, 5700, 5600 milliamp hour batteries in a foldable. So there is an advantage there to just packing in a gigantic battery. But again, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Kind of piggybacking on the battery size is going to be the charging speed. 25 watts is just far too slow, and if they stick with that again, that's going to just be unfortunate. If you have a smaller battery that needs to be recharged more often, you can make up for that in large part by having really fast charging, and 25 watts is just not fast enough. Especially in a world where the Oppo Find N5 is charging at 80 watts, you just look bad. I think for me, the bigger problem is going to be that 10 megapixel 3x telephoto, if they are indeed sticking with that. That's just going to be a bummer, right? So the 200 megapixel primary, great. Glad to see the upgrade. That is likely going to be the same camera that we have, primary camera that we have in the S25 Ultra. And I am very, very happy to see that camera make its way over. The ultra wide, whatever, I don't really care. I don't really use my ultra wide camera very much at all, but I do use that telephoto. You can't be low magnification and low resolution. You have to at least give me one or the other, right? The Pixel 9 Pro Fold isn't a great telephoto, but it's at least 5x optical zoom, and the result is I can take decent photos with it from fairly far away. This thing is only 3x and it's only 10 megapixels, so that's just not good enough on a very expensive device. It's not changed in a long time. Has it ever changed? I think at one point it was only a 2x zoom, so yes, I guess it has changed at some point. But it's been this for a really, really long time, and that is absolutely a place where it is falling behind some of this other competition. Again, I keep talking about the Find N5, but it's got a 3x telephoto zoom, same level of zoom, but it's a 50 megapixel sensor, which means you can go to 6, probably 7x, and still look really, really good. The last thing that I want to mention that I still saw quite a bit of comments on is the idea that they would be losing the S Pen functionality on the Z Fold 7. We've heard the rumors, we've seen the reports that this device would be dropping the S Pen digitizer in order to make it even thinner, 4.5 millimeters. But I want to remind you guys, back in December, we had this report going around that Samsung was looking into new S Pen tech in order to have no digitizer, but still be able to use the pen. The trade-off here is that the pen is likely to be a little bit bigger as it's going to require a battery. So they're going to have to come up with some way to sort of make that work. But I do not think for a second that they're going to ship the Z Fold 7 across the planet without having S Pen compatibility. You think people were mad that the S25 Ultra S Pen can't do air actions anymore? They would be furious if the Z Fold 7 lost S Pen compatibility altogether. If it did, that would be terrible. Even for people like me that don't use it, it would be a very serious own goal on Samsung's part. But I don't think it's going to happen. Like 99%, that's not what's going to happen, so don't worry about that. Now look, I might be on the more positive side of things, but I'm actually very excited about the Z Fold 7. I love how thin this thing is actually looking. It's going to fit in your pocket quite nicely. I love the fact that they are finally doing away with the skinny cover display. I also love that that means the inner display will be a little bit wider for split screen app users like myself. The new primary camera is great to see. Also, it's basically doing everything I need it to do, and the cherry on top is going to be One UI 7, which I have really, really enjoyed on my S25 Ultra. It's in my opinion, it's probably the best that they've done with their software yet. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Lots of things to like there. So shipping all that hardware with One UI 7, I'm going to be quite happy. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some places, some problems that they still need to fix. And hopefully we've kind of covered them here in this video. If I've missed anything, something that's just an absolute glaring issue, which I probably have, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know kind of where you stand on this. Are you okay with maybe the crummy camera for telephoto and the smaller battery in exchange for these other things? I'd love to hear it down below. Maybe, look, maybe they're trading some battery capacity for the bigger vapor chamber. It's going to stay cooler better with that new Snapdragon 808. There's lots of concessions that have to be made in these devices. Like I said, discuss it in those comments down below. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.